Hello and welcome to episode 219 of The Dive Down, a Magic the Gathering podcast focused on the latest decks, trends, strategies, and pioneer brews for the casual spike. My name is Shane, here in Denver, Colorado, and with me on the line from Massachusetts, it's Devon O'Donnell, aka d00mwake. He's back with us. Devon, what's up?
What's going on? I had a great weekend, did some stuff. Still recovering from a concert that I went to last night. That was kind of rough.
Yeah, we were going to ask you about this concert. We saw the live tweeting.
I was watching you on Twitter last night, buddy. Tell me about this show because I'm old and I cannot go to concerts anymore. Who were these bands and were they fun?
Some bands that you probably never heard of. It was Bleed From Within, The Devil Wears Prada, and August Burns Red. The show was amazing. It was an awesome show. It was, I think part of it was we ended up going into like the pit area for the last band and we kind of got like pushed around and stuff, but, yeah, it was a blast. Had a great time.
I haven't been in a pit since Black Flag, Devon. It's been
you saw Black Flag?
No, I was just looking for a name. I never saw Black Flag actually. I've seen Descendants / All, but never Black Flag.
So that is the Godfather, Dave Harbacher. Dave, how are you, my friend?
I have a question, Shane.
Yeah, go ahead.
Shane, so I love Devon. I want before I say anything, I want you to hear this. So Devon gets the intro before me as well now. So when Stan is on the show, it's you, Stan, then you, then me. Yeah. When Stan's not on the show, I'm still last.
Well, the running bit is that you talk before you're introduced.
Right.
So if I introduce you, then we don't get to do the bit.
That's
yeah.
So what you're saying is you. Oh,
I thought Dave just wasn't even here today.
I'm just here to set up the recording. That's all.
He just surprised you. No, but Dave's here as well. Thanks, Dave. Thank you for joining us on this. This is gonna be an interesting week. I think on this week's show, we're gonna talk a little bit about the SCG, that's Star City Games, the Richmond 20K Modern RCQ. It's a nice medium-sized paper tournament, and it's the first tournament that we had March of Machines cards legal, so we can see if there was any impact on Modern at least. And then after that, we're going to talk to Devon about some of his Doom brews. I have entitled this segment, and our resident pioneer expert is going to go over a number of kind of ideas that I'm sure that he has. Some he's created, some that I found from around the internet, and I just kind of want to have a breakdown about some ideas people have for what's going to happen in Pioneer. There's a lot of interesting combo potential that we're going to be talking about with some of these new cards from March of Machines. Excuse me. How many times can I make this mistake in one episode? Keep the count up, my friends.
Not enough.
Why is it not March of the Machines? Do you have any idea why that's the case?
I think they just kind of wanted the fun plural where it's like, it's March of Machines, where it could be like, it's not a single group, even though it is a single group. I don't know.
Set didn't come out in March. I don't understand why it would.
Stan already made this joke, Dave.
I missed
April of the Machines.
April of shoot. Even when he's not here, I steal his good ideas.
And I honestly, even before we get into the breakdown, there's so much we can talk to returning guest host Devon O'Donnell about, because you've been busy, my friend. You went to a tournament. You went to the Standard RC. Is it the RC? Is that what that's called?
Yeah. Regional Championship.
Okay. The DreamHack down in San Diego that I wish we could have gone to because it looked like a super nice venue and San Diego rules. But anyway,
still got a little sunburn.
Nice. That was one of the only times I've ever seen a Magic venue for a tournament of that size that had windows. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh, it was gorgeous.
Right?
It was so nice. Yeah, I could not believe it. I was very surprised. And maybe that's part of why I got so sunburned on the top of my head, a little extra light going in there. But yeah, it was an experience for sure.
Awesome.
That's great. Before we get into all that, let's do some pretty brief housekeeping. We have no new patrons. We have no increased tiers. We have no new reviews. So if you want to hear your name read out in the housekeeping section, you can go over to patreon.com/thedivedown. You can give us as little as $1 an episode. helps keep us going, gets you access to the definitively discreet Dive Down Discord. Someone just this week, this sounds like a plant, but someone just this week was like, I'm so glad I finally joined the Patreon. The community here is so nice and so welcoming. And that's the kind of stuff you love to see. And that's the kind of place that I really do think the Discord is. It's a really good community of people. And, it's benefit for you, benefit for us. And so patreon.com/the dive down. Dave, you also did just place a rather large order of new pins, new stickers, new tokens.
Yeah, we got a lot of new swag coming, and I know we owe a lot of people a lot of swag, Shane.
Oh man, we've been taking our time crafting new clever pins, new clever stickers, getting the token art. We have new tokens, by the way. So we have new tokens created from a community member.
Yeah, thanks to Casey at Tower Slayer for making. Actually, it's the artist who made the Rhino Boys shirt. Made the tokens. Yeah. So we went back to the Pixel well. We have 3 new tokens, 1 for each of us. And I think they're a lot of fun. I just sent them to the printer last night.
So when we get those in, we'll take some pictures, throw it up on the Patreon website, maybe probably throw it up on the Twitter, and those will be going out. There's some work to be done, as Dave said, so sorry for the delay for everyone out there in Patreon land, but it's going to be worth the wait, I think. You didn't really want like Heliod reference pins, I don't think, at this point, like Heliod combo.
One of our pins referenced inverter combo still, for what it's worth. It was, what deck has no cards and always wins? This one. It was a good pin. Bad deck. Yeah, good pin.
Good pin. Dave referenced the Rhino Boys t-shirt. We have that shirt, hats, hoodies, fanny packs, and more over at the store. It's the divedown.com/store.
Yeah, and also, just as a little preview, I am going to be taking a lot of the pins that we just made and turning those into shirts as well. So we'll have some new t-shirts available for people to check out over the next couple of weeks. Maybe not this week, but next week we're going to be moving it on.
So what is it, like a chainmail shirt where like it's all the pins?
Yeah.
Like
just
it's a shirt. It's a shirt of pins plus 2.
Perfect. I can't wait to see those. Mana Traders, the Dive Down 2023, I referenced a new code was coming. And it is now, thankfully, the same as our Barrister and Man code, the Dive Down 2023 for 10% off your first 2 months of Mana Traders online card rental service. Nerd Rage Gaming, they just give you 8% off for being a listener. Dive 8. Devon, I feel like we don't give you enough opportunity to promote how people can support you when you're on the show. What's the best way people have for helping you out, keeping you going?
As of right now, Twitch, YouTube, those are the platforms that you can subscribe to the content, twitch.tv/d00mwake, and have a Twitter as well.
Sweet.
But if we want to give you money,
yes,
Twitch,
money.
Right?
Twitch, yeah.
Just want to be really clear. Give Devon money on Twitch.
On Twitch. Twitch.com.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that neon is sweet.
Tune into YouTube or Twitch to see Devon's new amazing neon sign that's above his head right now. You'll be able to see it in our video, but I bet it features a lot more prominently in your daily streams. And it changes colors.
It does, yeah. Today was actually the first day that we had it up, so for people who watch the video, we can change some colors here. We got a little blue, green, a little yellow. Yeah, it's a bunch of different stuff. So
I'm glad we can be there on the first day of its utility. This is great.
I do have this basement that I've just moved. Since the last time we talked, Devon, my remodeling is done in my house, so now I'm down in my more permanent recording area. I got a blank wall behind this, not behind this shoulder, behind this shoulder right here.
Neon.
Maybe get a dive down, a Rhino Boy pixel.
That'd be sweet. Oh man, a pixel neon? That would look sick.
Put it all together. All right. Anyway, help Devon out. Check him out on Twitch as soon as you can.
All right. Let's get into the breakdown. Like I said, we have the SCG Richmond 20K RCQ. This was a 264-player tournament, the top 4 of which qualified for the regional championship at DreamHack. I don't know which one, probably someone in the semi-near future. And like I said earlier, this is the first tournament with March of Machine cards legal.
Was it?
I mean, I think so. Was it not?
Were there March of Machine cards in this tournament?
Hey, I found like at least 3.
Okay, perfect. No spoilers. There's a few here. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, and one may surprise you.
Mm-hmm.
At least one. So, I don't know, let's do the usual thing. We'll talk about the metagame.
Shane,
we'll
did you check this metagame?
Yeah, I did.
Oh,
so here's what's good. Here's what's good. Okay, here's where we're at. I think Melee got to the point where they were like, look, you have to pick a deck from the drop down of like possible decks. And like if your deck is not in that, it goes into like kind of all other deck lists. And what I did is there were like 16 of those or something like that, like all other deck lists. And so I just looked at what those were. And so I incorporated those into the proper category. I cannot tell you if like someone who said they were on Bring to Light Scapeshift on like place 72 was actually Mono Blue Merfolk or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. I assume there should, Melee heavily penalizes these players now. That gives them, they lose a round if they miscategorize their deck or something. That doesn't actually happen.
One of these days, there's just going to be a tournament, and we're going to see there was like 20% 10 rack, and we're going to be like, what happened? What is going on?
The 10 rack resurgence. See, I did my best. I think it's easier than it was before because I think they're trying to normalize the data on their end, so that helps me out.
I appreciate it. Please make life easy for your content creators. Do not troll us with deck list names.
Speaking of a troll deck list name, number one isn't Murktide.
Never heard of it.
There's 25 players, 9.5%. A un-Isn't Murktide win rate of 55.8. It actually had a very good weekend.
How? Why? How?
That's like the top range of its, you know what I mean? That's the 55%
that's
for
good.
Murktide is basically 80% for any other deck. So
totally
agree.
I mean,
I think if you look, some of the some of the decks like in the tier 2 of the representation at least, I think are things that don't really want to see Murktide, so that's going to help. But largely had a good performance, especially because I'm sure there was quite a few mirror matches. It was only 9.5%. It's not like 15 or 18 or something like that. But yeah, good weekend for Isn't Murktide. Some good players brought it out, as we'll talk about when we get into like the top 8, top 12. Mm-hmm. Up next was a mild surprise to me, spoiling my metagame thoughts. Later in the episode, 5-color creativity, also with 25 copies, also 9.5%, weird, and 52.9% win rate on the weekend. So pretty good. Not amazing, but a well-performing deck, and tied for first place in the meta.
Fascinating. This next one is mind-blowing to me. I have to be totally honest. We make a lot of jokes around here about this next deck, Shane.
Yeah.
This third place deck is Burn, Boros Burn, I'm assuming.
It's a real Burn meta.
18 entrants, 6.9% of the meta, 42.5% win rate. A very Burn win rate we have this the spring event. But
well, I would actually argue that the win rate is higher than we probably would have expected, right?
Sometimes.
Potentially.
It's definitely been in the high 30s in a couple of these tournaments that we've seen as well.
I mean, isn't this deck supposed to do a little bit of metagame checking against stuff like creativity? Or is that not even the case anymore? Like, isn't it supposed to like sort of say, hey, you need to be really fast. You can't just sit there doing nothing and expect to win.
The issue is, as far as I'm aware, I'm pretty sure Burn is really bad into Murktide. So I think that's probably part of the reason why it has such a low win rate is the percentage of Murktide. But it is good against creativity, so it's close,
And it is pretty good, I think, against Team of Rhinos, which is the next deck. 16 copies, 6.1%. Team of Rhinos did only have a pretty average win rate of 50.5%. So it wasn't blowing the doors off, but it didn't, it wasn't too sad of a performance this weekend. It's a perfectly adequate performance, but it was the fourth most represented deck in the room. I think people are more prepared for Rhinos than they might have been, 3 weeks ago or so, because Rhinos has been doing well for a good amount of time. I'm sure people are packing the hate that they need to. I think Burn is pretty darn close, and I don't really love sitting against it too often, but.
Although I will mention that I think, and I'll have to take a look at some of the deck lists, but I think Burn has been cutting Eidolon as of recently, if I'm not mistaken. Wow. So if they're cutting Eidolon, that probably makes the matchup a lot better for Rhinos.
What world do we live in where Burn is cutting Eidolon? What do you think is going on there?
I mean, it's not the best into creativity because they can just set up lines that have, they can play Leyline Binding for 1 or 2 mana, and then their natural line is just, turn 4, fetch a land for Dwarven Mind, play a 4 mana card. So you're not really getting a ton out of that there. Against Murktide, it's, I think the tempo loss is the biggest thing because there's so much cheap removal nowadays. And when you spend 2 mana and trade that for 1 mana and you only got 2 damage out of it, you can't really afford to trade cards like that anymore.
Yeah. Like, for example, the 34th place, Dalton Osmoon on Boros Burn went 7-6. So they had a good performance. They only have 4 Goblin Guide, 4 Swift Spear, and then they have 4, the usual 4 Boros Charm, 4 Lightning Bolt, Spike, 4 Rift Bolt, 4 Searing Blaze, 4 Skewer, 4 Skullcrack. So, 4 main deck Skullcrack, 2 main deck Lightning Helix, and 2 main deck Exquisite Firecraft, which is that's one that's spell mastery, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, it can't be countered and stuff.
Main deck.
So,
wow. Okay.
Yeah, main deck. So this is what's considered better is like, more Skullcracks and, main deck anti-counterable burn spells.
These burn players will not give up. They're like, nobody has changed this deck in 3 years, and we're going to find a way. We're going to get out Exquisite. We're going to main deck Skullcrack and Exquisite Firecraft, and we're going for it.
Well, to Shane's point, the best performing Boros Burn list, the same thing: 4 Goblin Guide, 4 Swift Spear, 1 Ragavan, no other creatures. It's got 1 Flame Rift, 3 Skullcrack main deck, and then a bunch of 4-ups. But yeah, no Eidolons in the best performing word list. So
wow. Oh, there's the best performer. I missed that one. 20th. Man, what the heck? I don't even remember what Flame Rift is. 1 Flame Rift.
Oh, that's
2 mana, 40 each.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I thought that was. Oh, they reprinted that. Was that one that was like? Was that a like legacy card that got printed into Horizons?
Yeah.
Okay, got there.
Wow, that's more time than we spent on Burn in like years.
That's what you get.
They're innovating.
And that was the Team Rona section. The Amulet Titans next, 15 copies, 5.7% of the meta, 41.7%. It's just a thing where it's like, hey, I'm never going to win in a world of Is It Murktide and Team Rhinos with Blood Moons and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's definitely tough sledding for Amulet. I mean, there are still a bunch of people who play it, and I can imagine that they have to. I'm trying to find the best performing Amulet list, but I have to imagine that they probably have some sort of plan against Murktide. Like, for example, I think this is 29th place is the best performing, and we got. It doesn't look like a ton of main deck like considerations, but there's 3 Endurance in the sideboard, a Thrun Breaker of Silence, and a Tyrannex Rex, which I'm imagining is for the counterspell matchup. So they're trying. They're definitely trying.
And I think we all thought that this deck was going to be a little bit more prevalent with Mycosynth Gardens, but just didn't quite happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you want to get good, by the way, Dom Harvey released out of the goodness of this fine Magic player, fine podcast creator, fine writer, it's like an 80-page document on Amulet Titan. Like, if just go read this, even if you don't like Amulet Titan, know what Amulet Titan players are thinking, and just understand how to like really assess and evaluate a deck and how you build it and play it, because it's brilliant stuff. So thank you, Dom, for sending this out into the world. We'll try to remember to put a link in the show notes there.
So that's our top 5: Murktide Creativity, Burn, Teamer Rhinos, and Amulet Titan. That is a combined 20, 25, 40-ish% of the metagame between those 5 decks.
But then getting into the next decks, we don't really have a precipitous drop-off by any means. I think we have a pretty flat like tier 2 here, where we have Azorius Hammer with 14 copies, 5.3% of the meta, 53.6% win rate. There was also 3 additional pilots on mono white. 2 of them had very good win rates. One of them not so quite as good. So I think we could say that Hammer across the board is probably more like a 55% deck and 17 total pilots between the 2 styles of build. Hammer still keeps doing Hammer things. It's like, if you know how to play it and like playing it, there's never a weekend where you're worse off. I feel like people are always prepared for you, but the deck is always going to be performing in the low 50s.
especially for the people that have played a ton of Hammer and they really know the lines. Like a lot of people, I think, kind of just assume the way that the Hammer deck is built, it's really easy to play, but that couldn't be farther from the truth. It's arguably one of the hardest decks in the format to play. There's so many things you have to think about for sequencing, and as I'm sure you guys have talked about plenty of times, it's like there's 3 different game plans, and knowing which game plan to go on is very important. So
yeah, and actually Hammer is the deck that sort of has some of the most quote unquote innovation going on in it right now, both with the advent of people adding Solitude to the deck in any number of quantity, whether it's 2 or I've seen, originally the first couple times people try this, I saw it with 4. If you look at Travis Brown, who came in 4th, I believe.
Yeah, he was second in the Swiss.
There it is, second in the Swiss, had 2 Solitude and also had 3 Surge of Salvation and 4 Amiria's Call, picking up some of that Hank the Obese mono white tech where we're gonna play Amiria's Call, so it's a pitch card that's also a land, which is I think one of the best parts of those particular white lists that we saw. It's interesting to see Hammer pick up that idea.
Yeah, pretty brilliant stuff. We can talk a little bit more about that when we go through the top 12.
Well, I don't have anything else to say about it, so we're
okay. Well, I have tons to say. The next we have Rakdos Scam, 11 copies, 4.2% of the meta, exactly 50% win rate. Very Rakdos scammy. I think it's the reason we see this deck keep dipping down a little bit. I think it used to be kind of high tier 2 or even low tier 1, and now I think people are expecting a little bit less, playing with it a little bit less, because I think statistically we just keep seeing this deck perform pretty dead middle of the pack, and you're not getting a lot of surprise edge with people anymore, and you're not getting any particular power level edge, I don't think, either. But speaking of decks that have some innate power level brokenness, we've got Living End up next, a slight resurgence. I haven't seen a lot of Living End recently, but there's 8 copies, 3% of the meta, and 54.4%. I didn't see any particular Living End innovations. I didn't see anyone picking up that new, the flying 3/1 or whatever. What's that card name again,
Halo
Devon?
something.
Halo Forager.
Yeah,
no, I didn't see any Halo Foragers in any of the lists that I looked at. Unfortunately, I was hoping that maybe someone would be busting this thing out. We've got Jeskai Breach, another deck that's kind of trickling down a little bit. I mean, this isn't the NRG series where we typically see a lot of it, but only 7 people, 2.7% and a 51% win rate. Grixis Death Shadow coming a little bit out of nowhere. 7 copies, 2.7% of the meta, and 51.4% win rate.
Then
pretty cool.
That's the end of our top 10 for what it's
worth. Yeah,
1,
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, so my arbitrary stopping point usually is like 2%, right? But you notice that we're getting pretty down here because the metagame was pretty darn flat. So like finishing up the top 14, we have Demir Mill, a 37.8% win rate.
Oof.
4-color Blink featuring Yorion, 56.4% win rate. 5-color Zoo, 6 copies, 45% win rate, and then 5-color Elementals, 6 copies with a 48.6% win rate.
Wait, why did you say featuring Yorion?
4-color Blink featuring Yorion. But is it not featuring Yorion? Is Yorion banned?
I would hope that it's not featuring Yorion.
Banned, Shane. Banned months ago.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, here's what's funny: is it said it on the deck list?
Did it say
so
it
says
there?
It says 4-color Blink Yorion. So I automatically went back to the well of featuring Yorion, and I was just like, oh wait, that card is banned.
I mean, it's a good callback, but yes, the card is banned.
Okay, don't play Yorion, my friends.
But hey,
please don't.
How about that win rate?
56.4.
Yeah, highest out of all of these decks. 4-color Blink. Omnath.
I mean,
you can't keep
the
a
deck
good Omnath down.
The deck's good, right?
I don't know. I just always bang this drum because people were like, "Deck's dead" when Yorion got banned, and I was like, "These are just good cards." Right.
Yeah, I was trying to look at deck list. It looks like there was one that was in the top. There's the finish 7th in Swiss. That one had Kahira. It's more like Blue-White Control with Ren. And then there's one in 13th that has the Omnath, Elish, Fury, Solitude, and then it's just like traditional. But these are only 60 cards. And I remember I've seen people, I think it was Respect the Cat. Well, they were playing Karuga, but I've seen people play, upwards of somewhere between 65 to 80 cards. So people are
just
still
randomly
getting their Yorion. Yeah, just random numbers.
It's totally true. I still think that it's people egging each other on more than anything else. People are saying, "Oh yeah, those are the rules. I'm a rule breaker. You can't tell me how many cards to play, Dad. I'm not playing that. I'm not only going to play 60. I have at least room for 10 or 15 more cards in this deck. I mean, why not play 100 then? If the idea is that they have,
just play Battle of Wits.
Yeah, just keep going. Do it unbounded. There's no reason to stop if you believe that it doesn't matter. It matters. I guess within reason, right? Believes that it matters, and so I don't see how you could get around it. Anyway, hey, this meta.
Yeah, it's flat. It's a flat meta, by and large. Besides the decks who did really poorly, we still have 9.5% to 2.3%. There's 14 decks in there, and not anything. No drastic swings really. We're still seeing a lot of 45 to 55. Which is, I think, where people want their metagame to be. Probably don't play Dimir Mill at 37.8%, but largely, Modern looks like Modern to me.
Yeah. One thing that's very surprising to me, we somehow found a deck that has a worse win rate than Burn, which I didn't think was possible. So yeah, don't play Mill.
It's funny, Mill had a couple of weeks where it was awesome for a minute, and then it just has cratered since then, which is it's really fascinating to see what happened. I thought Jace the Perfected Mind was going to get there for real, but maybe not quite yet.
Yeah, there was that week when Phyrexia first came out, and I think it was Tutors that was running really hot with it, and other people were playing Jace as well, and it was all over the place. And then, I think part of that also had to do with the fact that the Mycosynth Gardens had so much hype around it, so a lot of people were playing Amulet, and that's just a natural predator for Mill. So as less people started playing Amulet, then Mill loses its best matchup, and the metagame kind of adjusts from there.
Yeah, I mean, that week, a lot of people were also playing Hammer, for what it's worth. So it was kind of like Mill's, but it was like a buffet for Mill. They were like, I'll take a little bit of this, a little bit of that. A couple of the other things I thought were interesting, Corey Baumeister was one of the people that was on Grixis Death Shadow. Apparently what people like to do in Death Shadow now is run Underworld Breach, which is pretty interesting. So it's kind of like, who knew, but all the decks that I like or used to like in Modern want to run Underworld Breach. So we got your Prowess with Underworld Breach. We got Grixis Death Shadow with Underworld Breach. We got Jeskai Breach with Underworld Breach. That deck, all of those decks are a little bit on the wane as far as meta representation goes, but I am sure they will be back at some point not too long from now.
Yeah, I don't have any game-breaking thoughts here on the Modern metagame. I don't think there's anything that's going to switch up what people are playing right now. I don't think there's anything really from March of Machines that really shook stuff up. We'll talk about the top 12 decks in a second to see what kind of new cards and then some cool decks Inc. after that. But yeah, largely I think stuff's going to stay the same. Play what you feel like you're good with and what you're winning with. And, even though Burn's not doing great, I remember someone in our Discord, was it Grant, Dave, who said they just farmed their FNM or their LGS 3 times in a row with Burn, just killing it with Burn. So yeah, just because it's not performing at the tournament level doesn't mean you can't just take it to your LGS, have some fun, and take home whatever store credit you get.
Yeah. So Shane, your Rhino still not a question. I'm Hammer still out of this list, probably not a question. Devon, I know you're not.
Devon loves Modern.
Not deep on Modern all the time. Where are you going if you have to play a Modern tournament right now from this list? Do you think
Rhinos for sure?
Okay,
I'm not. There was not even just this weekend, but it's it's been dominating so much, and it's just the deck that I enjoyed the most to play. So it's also the only deck that I have left. I actually sold most of my Modern stuff, so I kept the Rhinos. But yeah, I would definitely play Rhinos.
There you go. All right,
sweet.
So SCG Con now cuts to a top 12, no longer cuts to a top 8.
Yeah, so what does the first round get by? The top 4 gets buys or something for the...
Yeah.
Yep.
Got it.
So let's talk about that top 12. I'll go through it just to give Shane a little break.
Please.
So number 1 after...
We're going to have Devon start doing this stuff now. He's not just color commentary.
Nah, Devon's color. We got to use his expertise. I'm the face. I'm just voice. That's all I'm good for. I put words in front of me. I will read them and occasionally not mispronounce them. All right. So we had Robert Stanley. Robert Stanley. Sorry, I had to. Number 1 after the Swiss on Rakdos Scam. Shane, how dare you say Rakdos Scam wasn't doing anything? It was the best deck after Swiss. It was a stock list though.
I mean, still a totally fine deck. I would play it.
Yeah, any deck could end up this way any day. But congrats to Robert Stanley for finishing the Swiss strong. Travis Brown, also known as Disgruntled Elk on Twitter, was on Mono White Hammer. This is the person I was talking about a moment ago who was playing Lonely Surging Mono White Hammer, as people are calling it sometimes now, and that's thanks to 2 cards. One is Solitude, 4 across the 75 Solitudes, 2 main, 2 side, and then 3 Surge of Salvation main and 1 side. So we had the full play set of Surge and the full play set of Solitude now in Hammer. I talked about it a little bit already. Are we surprised by this?
I mean, I get the Amiria's call thing. I just wonder, this has to hurt sometimes, right? When you're like, I need the white mana, I'm going to take 3 life loss.
No.
Well, it probably hurts less than the number of times that you get Solitude. Like, you need a white card to pitch the Solitude. So it definitely makes a lot of sense if you're going down the Solitude route. One thing I will say, Surge of Salvation is kind of cracked. Like, I keep reading that card over and over again. I'm like, wait, it does that too? It, like, protects you against Boseiju. God, so does Blacksmith Skill, but card is so good.
When we got done with our mom spoilers, when we were looking at each other going, this is the card, what card do we think is going to see play for sure? It was the only thing that we could think of from the set that was like guaranteed to see play in Modern. A lot of that has to do with the fact that Mono White already existed, but the card has so much text for 1 man. It's like, why doesn't it say draw card on it? Why don't we put draw card on it too and just finish it up, you know?
Or it's a modal spell that has like a force spike on it.
Yeah. If you didn't fizzle a spell while casting this, draw a card.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see where this goes. I have not had a chance to, obviously, Mom is not out on MidGo yet. So I'm excited to give this new build of Hammer a try this week, right? It should be available this week.
Tomorrow, yeah.
Tomorrow, perfect.
I hope so.
All right, third.
The stream is planned, so.
Well, if anyone watched Devon on Tuesday and he was just hanging out playing something else, we'll know that something happened with MTGO. All right, number 3 in the Swiss.
Do you have backup plans? Like, you're going to stream like, Celeste or...
No.
Okay.
I got nothing.
Do you ever do anything else other than Magic, by the way? Do you do like in-between stream kind of stuff?
I did a little bit of Clone Hero, which is like Guitar Hero kind of thing.
Oh.
It's like revamped Guitar Hero. And then I play a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel sometimes, but rarely anything.
Devon, I went so deep on Guitar Hero 1. I can't even tell you.
It was so much fun.
It is. Why is it so much better than the other ones? We'll talk about it some other time, but somehow Guitar Hero 1 is just perfect. It's just perfect. All right, third after the Swiss, the winner of the events, the winner of Magic in 2023 and 2022, Nathan Stoyer on Team of Rhinos, won the tournament, was on the list that has been winning a lot lately. Some people think of this as the Bullwinkle list. Who won back-to-back Modern Challenges with a similar list. Shane, what do you think about this particular build from Nathan?
I mean, the thing that's wild to me is just like, it's not new tech. Like, I remember when I was really in the weeds on Rhinos and I was like participating in the Discord and things like that. Like, 4 main deck Mystical Dispute was not highly unusual. I mean, it was not the norm, but it was something that people had done, like main deck Mystical Dispute. But people now, Bullwinkle, Stoyer, 4 main deck, cancels with potential upside are just what we're playing now. And then Murktide has essentially become a staple now. Stoyer here has 3 instead of the 2 that Bullwinkle is running. So what Bullwinkle's been doing is like 3 Delve spells, 2 Murktide, 1 Become Immense. And Sawyer's like, I don't want that to become immense. Just give me 3 Murktides. And so to make room for that, you shave Fury down to 2 in the main and 2 in the side. And they are running 25 lands, which has felt right to me, but it has felt right to me when I'm running a lot of tech lands, like when I'm running like maybe 2 Otawara or 2 Boseiju, depending on the metagame. What they're only running a singleton Otawara in the main, and then the Boseiju is moved to the sideboard, and 2 Gemstone Caverns main, and more basics than one might typically run. So like 2 islands, 1 forest, 1 mountain, which helps with life loss, I think, against the aggressive decks like Burn and such, and also kind of allows you to cast your spells, the double blue spells, through Blood Moon, because of course you'd have a mountain otherwise. So it's not choices that like are immediately come to mind for me. And I'm definitely going to be testing main deck Mystical Dispute just to like see how I feel with it. And to me, I'm going to be like, this is a cancel. But to someone like, people with a lot of reps with decks like this, and we've talked about this kind of stuff a lot, is like, I think people have more patience than I do. And that's when you're going to get value, even if it's not countering a blue spell. You're just using it as a counter, using it as a cancel, using it as a pitch card, something like that. But I think it's a perfectly fine list, clearly.
Yeah, you know what this kind of feels like to me? It almost feels like the Rhinos decks are just becoming Murktide decks. Like you'll see seriously the increase in
stuff
Murktide
going
regions.
on. Yeah.
They're playing Mystical Disputes, which is more counterspells main deck. Like it's just at this point becoming a Murktide deck without Ragavan and Expressive Iteration, or at least trying to like take the tempo game and try to play that same tempo game with the Murktide list. Because the Murktide versus Rhinos matchup has always been super close. But you can imagine a list that has a Murktide regions of its own and 4 main deck Mystical Disputes being a significantly far ahead in those tempo style games. So I think that's really what we're seeing here.
Yeah, and when 10% of the meta is consistently Murktide, why not try to up the matchup a little bit, especially if you feel like it's not hurting you too much anywhere else? So totally makes sense. I mean, how do you feel about that idea that Rhinos becoming Murktide becoming Rhinos kind of thing?
I like it. I mean, you got to adapt, right?
Yep.
The Murktide has been the best deck for quite some time, and we haven't really seen a ton of innovations, or at least innovations quite this drastic in like specifically the Rhinos deck. So yeah, it's really nice to see. It's a breath of fresh air. There's really adapting to the metagame.
Awesome. 4th place, Daryl Ayers on 5-color creativity. Here's our other new card that we thought we would not see, or we talked about and we're kind of wondering, didn't think it was going to make it, and that is Change the Equation. 4 Change the Equation in the sideboard of creativity. This is a generic blue counterspell where it counters a mana value 2 spell or less and counters a red and green spell of 6 or less.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's just it's a way to counter, you straight up counter Rhinos and other Cascade decks. I don't know.
Yeah. The more I think about this, I'm trying to think of like, what doesn't it hit? Like, is this potentially a main deck card? Like you said, it hits all the Cascade cards, hits Ragavan, Renin 6, Expressive Iteration, it hits Primeval Titan, all that kind of stuff. It's Fable the Mirror Breaker, Blood Moon. It hits a lot of stuff.
Yeah, one of the things that people in the Discord were saying is a kind of like 5-color creativity is going to have a hard time having blue for counterspell.
That's the thing.
So this is effectively just kind of like good enough counterspell, if not straight up counterspell.
Yeah.
So
with you having to fetch all those mountains in creativity, I guess it makes sense. I just never totally thought that creativity wanted to have an all-purpose counterspell like this. You know what I mean? After having playing it some, and let me take a quick look at Daryl's list here. I mean, how many Spell Pierce are we running in
4.
this list?
Main deck.
We're also running 4 still. Yeah. So we're we want to go up on counterspells in this list is what we're doing. Interesting.
Yeah, again, almost trying to play that tempo style game. Modern's just all about tempo right now.
Yeah. I'm not going to try to define what tempo means because we get letters every time we try to do it. But
we don't have enough time for that.
Devon, we're going to have you back sometime. We're just going to have an hour you explaining tempo to us because we need a refresher according to some people.
I'm going to call sick that day.
Oh, shoot. Oh,
I'm busy.
We almost had him. 5th place, Brad Nelson.
Who's that guy?
This top 12 is kind of unreal, by the way.
It's pretty stacked
as we get deeper. But okay, Brad Nelson on Is It Murktide? Shane, what did you think of this list?
Oh my god, this is like the Brad Nelson Is It Murktide deck. Like, I am good and understand constructed Magic, and I'm going to tune my deck for the metagame. And you can tell that kind of stuff because it's like, oh, I have 1 and 2s of that other people are not confident enough to run. Like I've got a Singleton Season Pyromancer, I've got a Singleton Brazen Borrower. I only have 2 Murktide. I've got 2 Dragon's Rage Channelers. I've got 2 Blood Moon, a Spell Pierce, 2 Spell Snare. Just things like that, like really sort of clue you in to the way Brad is thinking about his build of Izzet. And combined with his skill in constructed magic, and I imagine all magic because it's Brad Nelson, he does really well. 10, 2, and 1 for 5th place.
Yeah, you don't come to these numbers. Basically, one of 2 outcomes. You either come to these numbers with 1,000 games played or 0 games played. And I have to imagine that for a player of the caliber of Brad Nelson, it's probably the 1,000.
Yeah. So yeah, if you're gonna play Murktide, just play this list because he's done the reps for you.
At least it's more fun and interesting than what we've been seeing lately. Number 6, speaking of a more stock-looking list, now, Tyler, we're not talking badly about you. You're just not Brad Nelson. Tyler,
what if it is Brad Nelson? It's Brad Nelson's alt. He played 2 tournaments.
That'd be amazing. Met up against each other. Tyler Molenkopf on Izzet Murktide. A little bit more stock list here. That's okay. Still got you into the top 8, which is fantastic. Number 7, Jesse Clevenger on 4-color control featuring Kahira. Hallowed Moon, main deck. Shane, you have questions. We've got answers.
Yeah, Hallowed Moonlight. I mean, it's just it's a card that seems like it does a lot, right? And so Hallowed Moonlight, 1 and a white from Origins, instant. Until end of turn, if a creature would ETB and it wasn't cast, exile it instead, and then also draw a card. So there's your draw a card, Dave.
Yep.
But yeah, I guess what? It just does work against like Rhinos, Evoke Elementals, Creativity.
Yeah. It's been around the last 6-9 months here and there. I haven't seen too many people try it main that I've noticed, but I've definitely seen it in sideboards here and there. You can justify a lot of things with a card that says draw a card on the back half of it. I do have one thing to say real quick here. Mm-hmm. I know that 5-color Creativity has some really specific mana requirements, okay? But this 4-color list, this 4-color control list, is running Omnath, Renin 6 to Fairy Time Raveler, and 2 copies of Archmage's Charm, okay?
And Leyline Binding.
Well, go ahead.
And Leyline Binding.
Yeah, absolutely. So, listen, Creativity players, can you really just not run Counterspell over this conditional thing? Maybe it hits enough cards like you were saying, but I'm a little surprised. I mean, I haven't tried it myself, but if this deck can get blue in a place that it is useful to them, I don't know. Consider it challenged.
I think it's easier for the 4-color deck to be able to go like Counterspell or like Red and 6 into Charm because they can go blue-green into blue-red. But specifically with Creativity, because all the lands have to produce red, you can't go red-green into red-blue, so it's a little more awkward. But they can figure it out.
You got to get a Ralgren Charm in there somewhere, or Ralgren Triome in there as well in your sequence, which is, not always the easiest thing in the world, but that's what we're talking about. All right, number 8, Ethan Phelps on Rakdos Scam. Got another Scam deck in the top 8. Then number 9, we have David Frischer on Izzet Murktide. I'm just going to keep going through here. 10th is Pete Ingram on 5-color Creativity. Also had 4 times changed the equation in the side. Here it is. They both had it. 11th place is Duncan McAdams on Hardened Scales. 2, Ozolith the Shattered Spire.
Yeah. I think another person in the Discord said that they're a local player to them and they only play Scales. So good on them for getting a new card and taking it all the way to the top 8 effectively.
Ozolith is dope. That card is so sick.
It is cool. Yeah, I'm glad to see it get some play. It is funny to me that this deck of Duncan's has 3 the Ozolith and 2 Ozolith the Shattered Spire. Why did the second version lose the? Why isn't it the Ozolith, the Shattered Spire?
You can't have 2 the Ozolith. Like, you know what I mean?
It's true. I just feel bad
it is legendary,
that
though.
we lost the definite article there or whatever that is called. I don't know what that's called. I'm not a grammarian.
This set, weirdly, Dave, does not use the word "the" anywhere. That's why it's March of Machines and Ozolith.
Right.
So
it's like that person who wrote a book with no E in it.
Yes.
I see. We use no the. 12th place, Daniel Buchanan on Living End. All right, so the top 12 was 3 Murktide, 2 Creativity, 2 Scam, 1 Hammer, 1 Rhinos, 1 4-color Control, 1 Scales, 1 Living End. And as we said, Nathan Stoyer took it down with Rhinos. I think the top 8 matched the metagame plenty. And so I don't think there was anything that was too surprising here, other than, of course, we had the random Hardened Scales entrant, which why not? I hope that that continues to be something that people can play and are having fun with. All right. Do we want to take time to talk about a couple of cool decks?
Yeah, I love cool decks.
Okay.
We can do these fast. 3
cool decks that I found and Shane found looking through these results. I do have one. I do want to start one that seems absolutely mad to me. It's a deck in 40th place labeled Jund Scapeshift. I think you should all take a look at it right now because this deck
I'm looking at it.
It's a Jund Persist Reanimation shell, but it also has Primeval Titan as well. So it's Archon and Primeval Titan in a single deck. It's running Bone Shards, friends.
I looked at this list because I was like, what is Jund Scapeshift? And I was like, okay, this is like that Jund Reanimator Archon deck. Oh no.
No, it's not.
There's more.
There's no Scapeshifts. Where are the Scapeshifts? I was lied to.
Yeah, we're not scape shifting at all. We're dryading and prime timing people. Maybe we're Ren and Sixing people, and then also Archon of Cruelty. This is a wild list to me, completely wild.
Looks pretty cool. I'm kind of a little sussed out by the only 2 Fables because that card seems pretty good as like a discard outlet for Titan Archon when you're setting up Persist. But yeah, this looks pretty dope. I'm a big fan. Also, Bitter Reunion, like hasting Primeval Titan. That sounds kind of sick.
Yeah, I like it. It's very interesting. Good work, Bradley. We hope that
Bitter Reunion mildly slept on. I feel like we clearly see it in use. I'm just always surprised that it's only in like the weird offshoot, like Archon style decks. I'm like, this looks better than an offshoot to me.
It'll get there. That I think Bitter Reunion is one of those cards that's going to sit around until it's in a perfect home, and then everybody's going to go, I always knew that card was good. And it's going to be in a deck with 4 Fables. You're right, Devon. 43rd place. We do have 1 Abzan Devoted Druid list with 4 Tyvar. Somebody made it happen. They had a winning record. They didn't get all the way up the Swiss, but they tried. That is Steven Borakove in 43rd place. It's really weird to me. Like, we had so much hype around Tyvar and stuff, and then all of a sudden we're talking about the next set. I feel like there wasn't that much space.
The endless churn.
Yeah. Devon's doing the thumbs down. Are you thumbs down on Tyvar, or are you just thumbs down on not having more time to enjoy our moment with Tyvar?
That card's great. I absolutely love it. I played it on stream today, and I had a blast. But yeah, I think we just haven't found the right home for it yet.
Yeah.
It's just, it's a novel effect. He'll do something.
Someday soon. And then finally, in 46th place, a Jeskai mid-range deck featuring Obosh. We actually talked about this deck, or a deck extremely like it, on a recent... I think we did like a metagame breakdown of Modern and talked about some of the weird decks that were standing up. But Shane, tell me a little bit about this deck.
Well, first off, I do want to give this player a shout out. Their name appears to be Wit Ratanocharo Insuri.
Right.
46th place. It's just, this looks like some kind of Jeskai control type thing, but it's like, and eventually casting Elish Norn. Like it does, kind of the usual stuff like pressure, disruption, card filtering, Ragavan, Solitude, Fury, Season Pyromancer, Fable the Mirrorbreaker, Timeless Dragon, 4 Blood Moon.
Yeah.
Sweet. Perfect. Play this deck. I would be terrible with it.
I think this deck won a challenge, I want to say like a month or so ago around that. Yeah, okay. That's the same deck that I thought it was. Yeah, this is kind of popped up on Magic Online. I think it also, I want to say it really started from like a kind of like a Spike Brew where he was playing like the red-white mid-range deck, and I think they innovated on it a little bit. But yeah, cool deck for sure. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, what kind of a world are we in Modern where a deck that's potentially good and we're getting this same thing that maybe we talked a little bit about in Pioneer, Devon, a couple weeks ago, where it's like Fable is just starting to pop up in all these different weird places. Suddenly, it's good in a couple of really tier 1 decks, and now people are starting to add in other decks. This deck has 4 Fable and 3 Seasoned Pyromancers, so you just get a whole lot of mid-rangey cards where you get to discard 2, draw 2, and just churn through your deck. It's wild to me.
Babel's a hell of a card. One thing that I checked the other day on stream, I went to like the Stream Decker website and it shows you all the decks that you recently played, and it like has the little image, like the the featured cards or whatever. And I literally went to my Stream Decker page, and it's just like the entire
Fable,
front page
Fable.
is all Fable. Yeah, that card is that card's a lot.
Yeah, it does so much and asks so little, really.
So funny. All right, but that's a quick check-in on Modern before Mom fully launches, although we did get some March of the Machine cards here.
Yeah. So let's get out of here. We spent more on this than I anticipated, but we got a good look into Modern, and what we'll do, we'll take a quick break, and then we'll come back with Devon as we go into some Doom brews, primarily in Pioneer, and stay with us. David.
Shane, here we are.
It's April 17th.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get your taxes done?
Barely. I just got them done about literally right when I was firing up the recording session here. I was signing the tax documents from my accountant, and guess what he had wanted to talk to me about?
What?
He wanted to know all about Dive Down Media.
No, really?
And the associated things that came up from that. So
he was like, what the heck is Dive Down Media? Why do you have a tax form from this LLC?
He was like, here's this thing. You're an owner. Blah, blah, blah. He's like, I don't know what this is, but this is what it is. And I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, I have
Sweet.
a podcast about Magic the Gathering. All right.
If you have an accountant, we should be using this person more for tax benefits.
All right,
sure.
Well, let's talk about this offline sometime, but we get
fine.
Him up. Yeah.
Fine. But it's tax day. Importantly, Will over at Barrister and Man has a tax day sale. I'm looking forward to taking advantage of this. And so the things that are happening right around the release of this episode will be hopefully the Just Right for a Tuesday restock. Hopefully the Romance in Middlesex County restock. Just Right for a Tuesday, I'm amped for. I've never had it.
It's very good.
After you and Stan hyping it up, I'm going to order some. There are shampoo bars in tea tree and peppermint, so that's actually cool. That's a nice
bars.
Yeah, it's like a nice portable shampoo soap.
I love that. I did not know about. How did I not know about these before? I'll take a look. Man.
And Muir Wood and Fougère Classique enter the permanent catalog, made on a continual basis from now on. Muir Wood, very cool, and also going to be available in the European Union in the next few months. So that's happening right around now. So that's some cool stuff. I'm looking forward to seeing what the sale actually is because I don't know yet. And then coming up in May, we have I'll just do a little tease going on. We have samples of Adagio and Presto shaving soaps become available in early May. I assume we will get some of those because I love shaving soap samples. And then new Eau de Toilettes, the new shaving soaps in Adagio and Presto. Man, I'm going to save these for when these are actually out because these sound dope. You can see these on Will's blog. The Barrister and Man blog has all sorts of interesting articles about not only the release schedule and the sales, but Will also pointed us to a new, very long article that's very Will about how to make a masculine scent. And how he gets into his philosophy of scent design, how he doesn't really like making gendered fragrances. He doesn't believe in gendered fragrances, which is awesome because, there's a large spectrum of folks out there and a large spectrum of scents, and Barrister and Man certainly appreciates that. And yeah, if you want to get into Will's head more than just the scents themselves, you can see what this company is all about over at the blog.
Wow, this blog, he gets into it here.
Oh, yeah.
Structure for ethylene brassylate. Structure for ISO E Super. I don't even know what that means. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. If you want to get in the weeds, you can. If you just want to buy some stuff, you can. Barrister and Man, if you use coupon code TheDiveDown2023, gets you 15% off your first order, helps keep our relationship with Will and Barrister and Man going, and helps keep an awesome small business going as well. So thanks y'all. So this week, we have our resident Pioneer Grinder, resident Pioneer Brewer, and I realize that makes him our Pioneer barista. It's Devon O'Donnell, aka d00mwake, if you're not familiar.
Don't ask me to make you coffee, though. I can't do that.
So what we asked you this week is, hey, are you thinking about anything cool in Pioneer? You have any brews going on? And you were like, well, do I?
Oh, do I? You wanted one brew? I got a lot more than one.
This is an unbelievable list. I think that we definitely want to make it through of all of these. I don't know if we're going to need to cut some of the modern talk from earlier, or but this is a mountain we're about to climb. So strap in, everybody.
I think it's sweet, and there's some cards that I think we completely overlooked in our spoiler episodes. That's a huge combo enabler. Just trying to do a little bit of a pre-deck tease here, but we'll talk about them soon enough. So what I was thinking is, we'll go through these. We'll talk about kind of the basic idea, basic construction of the deck, and then maybe you can kind of give a 1 to 10 rating. You know what? I'm not going to ask on the potential you think. I'm going to ask on how excited you are to play this deck on stream, because that's the real potential that we're talking about here.
Right.
But before we get into those, though, I think, do you think there's a lot of opportunity to brew in Pioneer in order to win? Let's start there. Do you think that are there decks waiting to be discovered that are going to, let's say, at least be tier 2-ish, be 52% decks?
Potentially. I mean, we saw a little bit of that when Atraxa first came out, the Neoform Atraxa deck that, people really hadn't really messed with Neoform too much. So, the thing about Pioneer is, because the card pool is a little bit smaller than Modern, the cards interact in different ways, but there's always potential for what's the next Neoform kind of thing, and I do really think there is potential in Pioneer for a deck to be able to be towards the top.
Sweet. Yeah, I'm always looking. I mean, it's one of those things where it's it feels absurd to consider a format like Pioneer as solved as Modern, and I think that we just saw, like you said, that Neoform deck is capitalizing on a new card. And so I'm hoping that we'll see more things continue to pop up. And like I said, tons of brew ideas here, tons of combo ideas here. So let's start with the first one. And you called it 4-color Ascendancy. So tell us about this deck, Devon. So this is the return of Ascendancy?
I hope so. Well,
which one? Auzon?
No. The good Ascendancy. This deck was an absolute powerhouse in Pioneer right up until when Expressive Iteration got banned, and I think a lot of people just kind of wrote it off for dead, assumed it wasn't, because Expressive Iteration, that card was obviously broken, and that was a really, a pillar of the deck. It really allowed it to have some card advantage. Now, the new card that we're trying out here is Renin Realmbreaker, which is not necessarily a direct card advantage card, but what it allows you to do is it fixes your mana. For the people who don't know actually what it does, is I'll pull it up real quick. But basically, it's 3 mana, 3 loyalty, has lands you control have tap at 1 mana of any color, and then you can +1 to make a land a 3/3. It doesn't untap the land, would be a little bit too good. You can -2 to mill 3, get a permanent from those cards, and then -7 you get an emblem that essentially amounts to win the game. But the idea here is you're using Renin Realmbreaker to not only fix your mana, it provides you kind of an alternate win condition if your Ascendancies are getting dealt with, and the big part here is it gives you a 3/3 creature, which is very important when you're going with Jeskai Ascendancy, because the idea is cast a bunch of spells with a mana creature in play, generate mana, untap the creature with Ascendancy, and kind of keep going through your whole deck. But what you couldn't do before was with a lonely Sylvan Caryatid. If you just had a Caryatid and an Ascendancy, unless you were able to find the Sylvan Awakening, which makes all your lands 2/2s, you couldn't kill your opponent. But now with Ren, you just now have a 3/3 hexproof creature that is able to attack, and that's massive because that's the win condition. The win condition is Ren. It's giving you the 3/3 to attack with, because you just make it arbitrarily large with Jeskai Ascendancy. So that's really the thing that ties the room together, is the fact that it gives you basically a Sylvan Caryatid that can attack your opponent, and that's the important part.
Okay. I was wondering a little bit. I mean, I understood the color fixing part and even the land being an extra thing that you could tap and untap, but yeah, now it makes sense. Since I'm going to read Jeskai Ascendancy to people just in case they haven't seen it in a while. It's an
I guess it is an old card.
I mean, yeah, and it pops up in Pioneer, and like Devon said, it was popular recently, but it's blue, red, white, and it says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. Untap those creatures. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. So it lets you loot also. Like you go through your deck as well as making your creature tap and untap, tap and untap, tap and untap, get bigger and bigger and bigger with spells, and then you attack with it.
Sweet. So only 3 Realm Breaker. Do you not need 4 in this deck because you really want to get the first one, or is this? I mean, this is just, of course, I'm not gonna. We don't need to get into the 75 and all of these, I suppose. But do you like? So what? I guess what is the? I just want to get in your brain a bit on like the brewing end. So do you only want to see one? So you're going to run 3 of them and hope to draw 1 at some point, or is this the kind of thing like I want to see the first, and so I'm going to run 4?
So you do want to see the first, but you can just still kill with Sylvan Awakening, so it's not 100% necessary. The thing about Ren is the first copy is good, but it has high enough loyalty that a lot of times people aren't going to be trying to attack it. Like you play it, like imagine you play it on turn 3 on an empty board, and you plus it to 5, your opponent has to do a lot of work to kill that thing. So the first one's not dying that often, and that's why I think you don't need to play it. Like you don't need to play the full 4, but maybe it could be right.
The mana on this one, I have to admit, still does scare me. Although I guess you have the mana confluence, and you do have the triomes and whatnot. So I'm sure you can get there, but I'm still just I'm always anxious about this.
Yeah, notably of the 20 lands, Ren is a double green card. You're trying to also cast a Jeskai card. You only have 3 lands that don't tap for green, and you have Unbridled Growth to fix your mana and carry it. So it might look a little daunting, but I think it can work.
Yeah, Caryatid, always good at fixing your mana.
All right, bottom line. This is a new update to a powerful archetype that already existed. Before we get to your rating, I have one question about one card in your brew. Seed of Hope.
I knew you were going to ask about that.
What is up with Seed of Hope? I'm going to read this card real quick. This is a card that people, I think, just kind of looked at in the spoiler and went, It is a single green for an instant. It says mill 2 cards. You may put a permanent card from among the milled cards into your hand. You gain 2 life. Devon.
Okay, so this is honestly a card that I maybe should be playing more copies of, but I don't know how good it is, so I want to start with 1. But if you look at the deck list, there's only 23 non-hits for it, so 37 permanents that you can hit off of it. Notably, it gains you 2 life in part of the aggressive matchups. It finds you potentially Jeskai Ascendancy or Carried It or Ren if you're missing that piece, and it also mills 2 for Treasure Cruise. So
okay, 3 for Treasure Cruise in one sense because right, yeah. Which is cool. That's a setup with that kind of Thought Scour-esque move. Okay, I was curious about it. All right, bottom line, Devon, how excited are you for this one? 1 to 10.
Well, I played a lot of Jeskai Ascendancy before, and it was one of my favorite decks. So I'd have to probably say between a 7 and an 8 for this one, just because I have very fond memories of playing Jeskai Ascendancy, and I think this might be the missing piece.
Okay.
Sweet. But wait, there's more. There's Rona Ascendancy. Rona is a card that I think we kind of slept on. It's involved in a lot of combo decks.
I was going to say, I had it on my list for us to talk about in spoiler episodes, but I don't combo and don't understand combo, so I just left it alone.
It's for me.
So excited to hear you talk about how this is going to work. Yeah.
Yeah, so tell us what Rona does and how it works in this deck.
All right, so this deck, similar to the last one, is also a Jeskai Ascendancy deck, but instead of pairing it with mana creatures, what you're pairing it with is Rona. Now, for those of you who haven't, for the listeners who don't know Rona, it's 2 mana, 1 and a blue for a 1/3 legendary creature. Whenever you cast a legendary spell, untap it. It has the ability to tap, draw a card, discard a card, and then 5 and a Phyrexian black to transform it. Transforms into a 5/5 that has some 5/5 trample that has some good text on it. You're rarely ever going to flip this thing. But basically what we're playing it for is the first 2 lines of text. So legendary spell, untap it, and tap, draw a card, discard. So the natural pairing with this is Mox Amber, which is a free legendary spell that both untaps the Rona, and the Rona gives you the legend to be able to turn on the Mox Amber. It gives you the blue mana for Mox Amber. So you have like those 2 cards that are pretty powerful together, just like free spell that gives you another loot, so helps churn through your deck. You're pairing this with a card that many listeners probably don't know, which is Retraction Helix. So this is 1 blue mana instant. Until end of turn, target creature gains tap, return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. So the combo, the idea here is you go Retraction Helix on your Rona, right? So now it has the tap to return a non-land permanent. You play Mox Amber. You use the Rona to bounce. Well, you float blue mana off Mox Amber. You use the Rona to bounce the Mox Amber. You recast the Mox Amber, which untaps the Rona due to its own ability, and then you basically repeat that ad nauseum for infinite blue mana.
Wow!
Because every time you go through the loop, you're picking up the Mox Amber and retapping it. Now, once you have infinite blue mana, you can do some things. There's dig through times to help cantrips. You have like Saheeli, which makes infinite tokens. But the kill here is if you already have Jeskai Ascendancy in play. Now, every time you go through that loop, you're casting the Mox Amber, which draws a card and discards a card. So you loot your entire deck and then you find Thassa's Oracle. That's really the kill here. Is you don't necessarily need Jeskai Ascendancy. Like you can kill with just like I said, like Saheeli and dig through time. And then the rest of the deck is just a bunch of cantrips to get you there, like Research Desk. You have Emery, which helps get mill over Mox Ambers and combo pieces. And then you also have Bitter Union, which is important because it helps you find the combo, but also gives Rona haste, which is very important. So,
love it.
Awesome.
Yeah, this one speaks to me as a big time Jeskai combo player. I mean, I guess the reason I like this is because one, it looks really clean. Like it looks like easy to cast your spells. It looks like fairly easy to set up what you're trying to do. Thassa's Oracle kills, unfortunately, a little bit potentially. Is this has weakness to graveyard hate that the other Ascendancy deck does not have weakness to, right?
No, vice versa actually.
Why graveyard?
You're not
exactly.
milling. I mean, I guess in theory, you can't cast dig through time, I guess, but this deck doesn't need to use the graveyard to go through those Rona loops because you're not actually the combo doesn't.
Oh, it goes to your hand. Goes to your hand, not the graveyard. Yes, forgive me.
Yeah.
So Rona, I feel like this wasn't a super hyped card. Besides maybe like the Brewers, the combo fans out there. What do you think about this card? I feel like she's in a bunch of different stuff. She's in the next deck we're going to talk about. But what kind of application do you think that she's going to just see a lot of different play because of the novel ability she has?
Honest opinion, the second I saw this card, I was like, holy crap, this card is broken. Now, it takes a little bit to work with it, but like the immediate pairing with Mox Amber, just giving you free untaps and free loots, there's so many things that it does. If it's a legendary for the Amber, I think this has the potential to be a really big player in the format. And like you said, not just combo decks. Like I've been thinking about playing it in, there's been like a uptick in Esper Legends in Pioneer that I haven't built the shell quite yet, but it's good in that deck because it allows you to you can loot away a Denic, which wants to go to the graveyard anyways, and then untap the Rona when you cast another legend. It does so much, and I'm a huge fan of this card.
And your boy has 4 Mox Amber now. I ordered them maybe a month ago. I was like, it's time to buy into some Mox Ambers, and I can build this deck dirt cheap.
There you go.
Yeah.
Can't wait to bring this one and mess up at the Pioneer LGS event.
Turns out Moxes sometimes can be good, Shane.
Weird. Who would have thought?
All right, so let's talk about this next Rona one.
No, we need an excitement rating.
Oh, sorry, we do need the rating.
For this one, probably closer to 6 or 7. Like I'm probably as an Ascendancy deck more excited about the 4-color one. But this one's potentially good too. So.
All right, you got one more Rona combo at least, and that's Sultai Rona combo. So tell us a little bit about this one. How does this differ from the last one?
All right.
Well, besides the fact that it has no Jeskai Ascendancy.
So this one is similar to the last combo in the sense that it's still using Rona plus Mox Amber plus Retraction Helix, right? So that was the combo that generates infinite mana, infinite blue mana. Now, instead of pairing it with Jeskai Ascendancy, you're pairing it with Tyvar, Jubilant Brawler. So what you do with Tyvar is, if you have, let's say you have a Tyvar in play, right? So each of the time that you're bouncing the Mox Amber, instead of making blue, you can make black and green mana because Mox Amber taps for any legendary planeswalker creature. So you're generating infinite black and green mana. And then what you do is once you have that much mana, you then play Tyvar, which untaps the Rona. You mill 3 with Tyvar, get a creature back, and then you use the Rona because it's under the Helix to bounce the Tyvar. And then because you have infinite black and green mana, rinse, repeat over and over again, mill your deck out, Thassa's Oracle. Now, the upside to playing this particular deck over the previous one is we get to play the best black cards, which is Fatal Push and Thoughtseize. Just the best interaction in Pioneer, hands down, not even close. So
yeah, always would love to cast those.
Yeah, that's kind of the upside to this version. It's probably less in on the combo per se. Well, it has the combo, but it's playing a little bit more of an interactive game with like Thoughtseize Push. You see like some sideboard additional threats and stuff like that.
Yeah, so this one, the combo is actually weak to the graveyard, right? Because you have to mill something and get it back with Tyvar potentially, right? But it does have Ledger Shredder in it as well, and it has Jace Vryn's Prodigy.
I mean, JVP sighting.
My gosh. What a sight for sore eyes Jace Vryn's Prodigy is. So yeah, I like the look of this one as well, where you're kind of doing, like you said, you have more interaction available. You're also playing one of the most broken cards in the format in Treasure Cruise, and being able to have that around instead of Dig Through Time, which is equally broken. And you got your Shieldreds in the side if you want to be able to try to play a slightly more fair game. What do you think? How do you feel about the difference between the Ascendancy engine versus this one? You just want to try to play them both and feel it out, or do you have an instinct about which one is going to be more interesting to actually play?
It's probably a play it out kind of thing. Like the combo pieces, like you have the other deck that has Jeskai Ascendancy, a 3-mana enchantment. You have this deck that has Tyvar, a 3-mana planeswalker. So the extra combo piece is similar in that regard, but I think the biggest upside of this deck is the fair plan with, like you said, Jace, Ledger Shredder, Thoughtseize, Fatal Push, like just getting to play all of those good interactive spells, and like you could even just win a game with Shredder and stuff, Shredder whatever. So that's kind of cool. Like Tyvar can rebuy Shredder or Jace, which is nice too. So I think this deck has probably a better fair plan, but maybe is less good at assembling the combo because it doesn't have like the Emeries to find combo pieces and the research desks to find combo pieces. So it's playing a little bit more of an interactive game.
Yeah. Also, can we just talk about the fact that Jace used to be $110 card or whatever it was, a $90 card, and now it is $9 by the looks of it? Wow.
Was it really that much?
It was.
It was like $90. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Thanks, during like the Rally and Coco days, right?
Yeah. Thanks, Jeskai.
Yeah, just
Black.
the wild mana. Yeah, Jeskai Black. Yeah. Who knew fetches and typed duels in the same set, similar close sets.
Yeah. All right. What do we think about?
Can we talk about some dragons? Oh, rating. Yes, I forgot the rating this time. I just want to talk about dragons.
Probably closer to like a 7 or a 7.5, like a little bit more than the previous one, but not quite as much as the 4-color Ascendancy. So.
All right. So does that end our combo section, or we have some more combos coming up? Because we have a couple of different decks after this, but
yeah, that's pretty much it for the combo decks. Like the other decks have, like, some of them have combos built in, but they're not really trying to be combo decks like these.
Awesome.
Decks, so.
All right. Some strong entrants to combo pieces that we already knew, and a new powerful engine in Rona and Retraction Helix and Mox Amber. Well, let's talk about the next deck.
Dragons.
Shane, you said dragons.
Dragons. Oh man, this deck's sweet. 4-color dragons.
You want to do 4-color?
Is this 4-color
No,
dragons?
it's Gruul. It's Gruul.
No, it's Gruul Dragons. Oh man, I was jumping ahead to the 4-color one. There's so many dragons to look at. Oh man, don't listen to me, everybody.
There's 2 dragon decks, everybody. Get ready.
So yeah, Gruul Dragons. This calls to me.
All right. So, I mean, if you look at this deck, the layout of it and the makeup of it is very, very similar to what you would see in like traditional Gruul Boats decks, right? You have the elves, you have Stormseeker. I guess that's probably where you stop. But the rest of the deck is basically,
and 4.
That's good. That's good enough.
And 4 and 5 drops. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Yeah.
So basically,
Stormseeker is such a bonkers card.
Yeah. It is. That turn 1 elf, turn 2 Stormseeker is really hard to beat in this format. But yeah, where you would normally see like the Esika's Chariots and the Sky Sovereigns, instead we're playing dragons. So we have Thunderbreak Regent and Glorybringer, which is a pairing that has, I don't remember if those two were ever legal in Standard at the same time. I don't think they They might. No, I don't think they were.
But they were not. Wasn't it Thunderbreak Region and Stormbreath Dragon that were around at the same time? Yeah,
that sounds about right. But yeah, Thunderbreak Region is the reason that we're playing this new dragon support. I guess we should do that first. Is Invasion of Tarkir. So this is the new card here. It's 2-mana battle. When it enters the battlefield, reveal any number of dragons from your hand. When you do, it deals X +2 to any other target, notably, where X is the number of cards that's revealed this way, and X can be 0. So if you have no dragons, just 2 mana for 2 damage. I believe they had to put the other on there because otherwise you could just have the battle kill itself and immediately flip. That would be a little too good.
That'd be pretty good.
And then,
Stan and I did point out, if you have 2 of them,
yes,
you can target the other one.
Yeah, so the second, that's why you would play 4 of these. The second one's really good because then you just get the 4/4 immediately. But yeah, it flips into 4/4 Flying Trample. Whenever a dragon you control attacks, deals 2 to any target. So that's kind of the payoff that we're going for here. We're pairing that with the Dragon Shell for 4 Thunderbreak Region, 4 Glorybringer, 2 Atsushi the Blazing Sky. I'm not too sure about this one. But it's, another dragon. It's good against removal spells. If they kill it, you can make some treasures or draw a couple cards. And then a Stormbreath to top off the curve. And then the other removal spell here is Draconic Roar, because this version is a little bit more aggressive. You really want the damage to the creatures, like a Searing Blaze type thing. Mm-hmm. So you want to be a little bit more aggressive. And then Sarkin Fireblood, which helps you loot away additional battles that you might not need, or helps you make mana to ramp to Stormbreath Dragon and stuff like that. So and then obviously it's playing Fable because it's a red deck. Why wouldn't it play Fable?
Yeah.
Got to.
Like any deck that could potentially even play Stormbreath Dragon is going to give me some nostalgia, warm, fuzzy feelings. I'm in for it. So I will note, this deck only features 11 dragons. Oh. And yeah, well, so here's my issue. For Invasion of Tarkir to be better than a sorcery speed lightning strike, you have to have at least 2 dragons in your hand, right?
Sure.
So if I only have 11 dragons in my entire deck, I get a little bit anxious. And so it's can we make this more all in, where it's Fable is great, but are there any other kind of dragons that call to you? Maybe not in Gruul colors. You have to go into is it for Sprite Dragon or something like that?
Yeah, see, the way that I look at Invasion of Tarkir is, even if you only have 1 dragon in your hand, 2 mana for 3 damage, most of the time you're just going to be picking off 1-drops with it anyways. You're going to kill an elf, you're going to kill a Blood Tithe Harvester, and you don't even need a dragon in your hand for it to kill those 2 cards. So the way that I look at it is, it's more of just I'm playing more towards the back half of it than I am the front half of it. So even with only 11 dragons, if I'm let's say, you go you play an elf and then you maybe invasion their elf, and then you play a Thunderbreak Region. Then the next turn you can just Thunderbreak Region, attack, and flip, and now you have 2 massive dragons in play, and they are put in a spot where they can't really afford to kill the other dragon, because then the next removal spell they play, the Thunderbreak, they take an additional 3. So you're just you're putting them in this really rough spot with Thunderbreak Region specifically, and that's more, I'm playing it more for the back half than I am the front half, and maximizing that.
Sure. I mean, it makes total sense, and I love stuff like this. I would cast 4 and 5 mana dragons all day, so I'm in.
But how about a deck? Oh wait, God, we keep forgetting the ratings.
How could
Devon?
you?
How
excitement level?
Where do you place this on your excitement level?
9.
Not 9.
Yes.
Invasion of Tarkir is my favorite card in the set. Not even close.
Wow,
that's awesome. Okay.
I'm excited to see this stream then.
I think Invasion of Tarkir is a lot better than people are giving it credit for. I think that card's crazy.
Is it because you think the backside is better than people are giving it credit for?
Yes. Yeah, okay. I think like Shane brought up a good point. It's you're kind of a little bit hesitant to play it with only 11 dragons, but even if you're killing an X1 or an X2, anything that you get to kill with the front half of it is just pure value, because I think the back half is just imagine you flip this thing and the next turn you attack with 3 dragons and you just dome them for 6. It's just lethal on the spot. And you're putting them in this awkward spot with Thunderbreak where they have to they basically have to kill the other dragon, and then if they use another removal spell on Thunderbreak, that's 6 damage you got off the Thunderbreak anyways. So it's just that compared specifically with Thunderbreak Region, and then also Glorybringer, because it has haste, you can immediately kill the battle. It pairs very nicely with those 2 cards.
And so you're also believing that this battle is pretty easy to flip then.
Yeah.
Do you think
because all the dragons have 4 power.
Yep. Yeah. Do you think most battles are easier to, or do you think battles are easy to flip in general, maybe more than people are thinking they are?
So the battles that I like the most are the cheap ones that have low defense. So Invasion of Tarkir and Gobakon are my two, probably my two picks for to see the most play out of the entire set. Just because they're both 2 mana and they both have relatively low defense. But once you start getting past like 5 or more defense and you're starting to get to like 3 mana territory, it's really hard because you have to spend a lot more. You have to spend a lot of mana up front, and then you have to give up 5+ damage to be able to attack. And like, it gets kind of tough once you get into that territory. So
yeah, Invasion of Tarkir does have 5 counters.
I thought it had 4.
It's got. I'm looking at it right now. It's got 5, but
Deck's out the window.
Deck's out the window. No, I mean, I don't know if it changes it that materially, but yeah, worth mentioning. But it's awesome. I mean, it's a card. I would love to see a card like this make it through. I'd love to see some of the battles make it through. And I do think most people reading Invasion of Tarkir were like, this is something, right? Like this is a thing that everybody should be paying attention to. So that's awesome to hear.
Oh, you know what? Okay, no, I figured it out. I just realized the Dragon plus Stormseeker. That's how you get the 5 power. I knew I was thinking that I could kill it immediately, but it's Dragon plus Stormseeker. So it's more of like a 3-card combo, but
right. But that's an important thing to point out, is just saying like the reason. I mean, Storm. I've completely blanked on that. Stormseeker. Stormseeker is an awesome card, right? And part of the reason that it is amazing is because of the fact that it not only gives haste, it gives that bonus to the power when it's attacking, whether it's 1 or whether it's 2, depending on if it gets flipped. But yeah, that's a great point, that the 4 power matters because of Stormseeker. But how about even more dragons? So this is a more dragon list, right?
So I like this. This one's got 18 dragons. I'm in. Devon, before we go on, I have to say, when you put these lists on Goldfish, did you like drop in funny versions? Are these the default versions?
Default.
Because like the Lothless Dragon Queen is the one from like the children's sketch Secret Lair.
I get it right now.
I'm loving it.
I honestly didn't even know that they had a version of that.
Nor did I.
Now I got to buy one. But okay, so this one is a little more out there. But the idea that I will preface this by saying I actually saw this on Twitter from Javier Dominguez, world champion, very good Magic player, and he had like done an article for Hari. So I got most of the inspiration for this from him. Changed a couple of cards, but the idea here is we're playing Invasion of Tarkir again. Now we are playing, as Shane said, quite a few more dragons in this list, so it's more likely to deal 3 or 4 damage. We're not necessarily like aggressively trying to flip it. This is more of just the removal spell on this list, because you'll notice instead of Draconic Roar, we're playing Dragon's Fire, which doesn't go face, but it can deal more damage depending on the power of the dragon that you revealed with Dragon's Fire.
Right.
So that's our removal spells. And then what we're playing is mostly red dragons. So we have the 4 Thunderbreak regions. I guess that's the only one, and that's the same as the last list. But then we're also playing 4 Nicol Bolas the Ravager, which is Grixis and a colorless 4/4 flyer ETB. Each opponent discards, and then you can pay 7 to flip it, and they die on the spot. And then we're also playing with a new card, Zurgo and Ojutai, which is 3 copies of. So this one is 4/4 flying haste for 2 colorless and Jeskai mana. Has hexproof as long as it entered the battlefield this turn. And whenever 1 or more dragons deal combat damage to a player or battle, so even if you hit your invasion, you look at the top 3 cards of your library, put 1 into your hand, the rest in the bottom, and then you may return 1 of those dragons to its owner's hand. I think potentially a really powerful card, because what you can actually bounce itself, and then the next turn, if you recast it, it will continue to have hexproof. So as long as you can, keep spending the mana, you can keep going that way. We have Sarkhan Fireblood to add mana to help you, recast the Zurgo and stuff. And then we're running out the dragons here. We also have 2 Nadar Selfless Paladin. I don't know if y'all have ever heard of this card. I didn't even know it existed until I saw this deck list. But
Dragon Knight.
It is a dragon. It's 2 and a white for a 3/3. So cheap dragon. Didn't know they made those. 3/3 vigilance. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, venture into the dungeon. Notably, you can't go into the Undercity or whatever the initiative dungeon is. So there's that. And then also Kolaghan the Storm's Fury, as if we didn't have enough colored mana symbols in our dragons. Yeah, that's one that whenever it has dash for 5, it's 3 black red, and then whenever a dragon attacks creatures you control, you get +1/+0. So we're kind of pairing that all together with Sarkhan Fireblood, because that makes any color of mana for dragons, and Orb of Dragonkind, which is a 2-mana artifact that has 1 tap, add 2 mana in any combination, which you can only spend to cast dragon spells or activate abilities of dragons. So you kind of have the mana fixing from Orb and Sarkhan. You also have Haven of the Spirit Dragon and Secluded Courtyard to fix, to tie the mana all together, which casts any of your dragons. And then you have the removal spells, Invasion, Dragon's Fire, and then all of that top end because you're playing so many different colors. So this one's a little more out there, but, we potentially might have the right fixing for it.
I mean, and I think that secondary ability of Orb of Dragonkind is pretty sweet. Like, red, tap, sack it, and you can dig 7 for a dragon of your choosing and put it in your hand. That's some good filtering. That's like a really good ability to get like a dragon you might need to finish the game off.
And especially with the different abilities. So you have like Kolaghan, which pumps your team. You have Zergo, which draws cards. You have Nicol Bolas, which discards. So Orb, there's a lot of selection with Orb,
This deck is sick. This is like so many sweet cards together, and a bunch of cards that I really have not paid any attention to in the past. Like Sarkhan the Masterless, I definitely haven't seen that in a minute, but that's the one that makes like tokens, and also whenever a creature attacks you or planeswalker you can control, each dragon you control deals 1 damage to that creature, so you get like a you can't attack me kind of thing going on if you have Sarkhan the Masterless out and a bunch of creatures. Kolaghan the Storm's Fury is one of my favorite cards from back in the day. I used to love to play that card. Nicol Bolas the Ravager is like a perennial, I feel like perennial Magic Arena kind of explorer card that people love to try to play. So it's awesome to see that in a Brew and Pioneer as well. Yeah, lots of cool cards here. But I do have one request here. Make this deck awesome so that my like 13 copies of Haven of the Spirit Dragon from way back in the day are, so I can sell into the hype. Devon, let's do this. I got some buy lists to do.
This is not a financial advice podcast.
I seriously have like 10 Haven of the Spirit Dragons from drafting so much during that time. Sweet. All right.
I think.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, excitement level.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with like 7 on this one, maybe 6.5,
right.
7, because I think it has potential. But I'm a little skeptical of the mana base, as you can probably imagine.
That's the hard part. So, Devon, this next deck, this looks suspiciously like Gruul Boats, except for the addition of a giant dinosaur.
Well, you mentioned that. So, yeah, Gruul Boats, this is very similar to kind of the Gruul Dragons deck that we had talked about, where it took the boat shell of the Llanowar Elves plus Reckless Stormseeker. It's also playing, Bone Crusher, Lovestruck Beast. It's also playing Asika's Chariot. So, you have that really good core. But instead of pairing it with like Sky Sovereign and some additional removal spells, the first card that you're adding is Saproling Migration, which I will say is a horrendous Magic card. It's 2 mana, make 2 1/1s. Sometimes you kick it. You're probably not going to kick it. But the reason that you're playing that is because you need to have a very wide board to be able to cast Ancient Imperiosaur, which is 5 GG for a 6/6, has Trample, Ward 2, and Convoke, and it enters the battlefield with 2 counters on it for each creature that convoked it. So, simple math. I know I might not be the best at math, but if you tap 7 creatures to cast Ancient Imperiosaur, that means it gets 14 counters, which means it would have 20 power. Now,
ta-da!
I know where this is going.
What could you possibly imagine of a card with 20 power that you would do with? Well, we have the aforementioned Reckless Stormseeker, which could give it haste, and it also has Trample and Ward 2, so it's not the easiest thing to kill. But let's go a little bit deeper. Let's pair it with Fling. So not actual Fling, even though Fling is legal. You even get to cheat a little bit because you're playing Kazul's Fury, which is 2 in a red instant, additional cost to cast the spell, sack a creature, and then it domes them equal to the power to any target. But it's also the backside as a land that comes into play tapped. So your Flings are like in games where your Fling is not good, you can just play it as a land. So that's kind of cool. And then a couple of removal spells to round that out. I'm not sure like what the numbers on those should be. But yeah, it's really nice that you get to play, like you just get to free roll your Fling, and then when it's not good, you play it as a land. But yeah, that's the joke here is Ancient Imperiosaur, 20 power combined with Kazul's Fury or Reckless Stormseeker, and then just kind of one-shot them.
So are you not interested in that that 2 in a red like fling creature.
The vampire, the backup creature that gives self-sacrifice fling.
I thought about it. I think that maybe it might be right to play that in like those removal spell flex spots, or maybe you could trim some number of Saproling migrations. But the issue with that is like it is 4 mana. So in the instance where you're casting a 2020 Imperiosaur, you need 4 mana to be able to go off with the fling, as opposed to just 3 with the Gazul's Fury. Somebody even suggested to be Thud, which is 1 mana fling, which you could just do for 1 mana, which you probably have a spare mana left over. So I think that the vampire card is interesting, but it's maybe a little bit too mana intensive.
Yeah, that makes sense. I love the idea of taking this combo, which is like everybody wants to fling this dinosaur at something for sure, but having the backup plan of being like, yeah, but also I can just give it haste with Reckless Stormseeker and just swing in with it. And you can even tap Reckless Stormseeker in order to convoke it. It's all part of the package. And hey, you don't have to just attack with a 2020. You know, if you get a board up with 4 creatures and you convoke out Imperiosaur, why not attack with a, what is that, a 14/14 trample haste? Like,
something like that,
I think it's fine still. Like that's cool. I mean, Reckless Stormseeker can activate all these other lines for that card that is like a giant green fireball, basically.
Yeah, and the nice thing about the Stormseeker Imperiosaur line is, like you said, even if you don't got going the full 20, you're putting pressure on them up the curve. Like you're going Elf into Stormseeker into, if you go Elf into Stormseeker to Chariot, well, first of all, they're probably just dead anyways because you had the nuts. But even if they can answer that, like maybe they took 4 or 5 off the Chariot, you don't need to deal the full 20. You can just kill them with a, like you said, a 14 power dinosaur. It's not, you don't have to go super deep, but
yeah. Yeah, it's cool. It's a great evolution of that, and a card that I think people will tend to dismiss as being like a Timmy card, as much as I don't want to bring up the old psychographs or whatever, being like, ooh, giant dinosaur. But this is a place where you can really do some stuff with it and occasionally just dome people.
Yeah, this one's a little bit better than Thrasta.
Yeah, right. Thrasta. All right. Excitement level.
This one's probably closer to like a 7.5 or an 8. Okay. I'm just a big fan of, like, you're just playing a lot of good cards, like the Elf Stormseeker Chariot curve, and you're not really, like, you have to play some number of bad cards like Migration, but other than that, like, I think this deck might, of the decks that we've shared so far, I think this one probably has the most potential to just, like, be a good deck.
Awesome. That's wonderful. All right, next up, a deck we talked a little bit about in a modern context. Mono green scales for Pioneer. Let's talk about where this led you.
All right, so
hold on. How much does Foreign Klex cost now?
Oh, you don't want to look.
Holy moly!
Why is it so expensive?
Commander, baby.
Commander. Ooh, I have a sketch Foreign Klex.
You've got cool ones of those, don't you?
And I have a Phyrexian one.
Oh boy, you're just rich.
I might be now. My kids can go to college. I'm
But tell us about this deck, Devon.
All right, so Mono Green Scales. Now, Hardened Scales is a deck that people used to play a lot prior to the Walking Ballista ban in Pioneer. And one that really hasn't had its time to shine since the banning of that card, probably for rightful reasons. I personally, I have tried a lot of different Hardened Scales shells on my Twitch channel. Like, I've tried brewing with Scales, and then I tried like Tyvar plus Steel Overseer. I tried a green-white shell. I tried an Abzan shell. I've played way too much Hardened Scales over the past like year or so. And Ozolith is maybe the card that ties the whole room together. And the nice thing about Ozolith, which we'll read for the viewers, but basically it's a 2-mana Hardened Scales. 2 mana, tap, put a counter on an artifact or creature you control, activate as a sorcery, and it cycles for 2. It is a legendary artifact, so additional copies can cycle. But the nice thing about this is you don't have to play a second color to get into an additional copy of Hardened Scales. So before, you had to play like Winding Constrictor, or you had to play Conclave Mentor. But now you just get to have a clean mana base with this. You still get to play 8 scales because you're playing Ozolith and Hardened Scales, which means now that you're playing one color, you can play 4 Nykthos. And then you can play the Nykthos shell with that, which is like the Elves, Burning Tree Emissary, And then the cool thing that kind of like bridged the gap is Vivian Arcbow Ranger, because it's a card
love that card.
is both very good when you have the scales half of your deck, just being able to double up the counters across the field, but also really good when you have the Nykthos portion of your deck, because you can make a ton of fast mana and you can cast Ulabogs on turn 3 or turn 4 in this deck. So you have like really nice, like you can kind of go both angles. And then the other cards that kind of tie the room together are Barkhide Troll, which is a green for, I believe it's a 2/2, enters the battlefield with a counter on it. So with the scales, it's a 4/4. You have Yorvo, which is 3 mana ETBs with 4 counters, but these are all, the reason that you're playing these is because they're all devotion enablers that put counters on themselves. So they work with scales, they work with Nykthos. And then you also have another new card here, which is Tribute to the World Tree, which is triple green for an enchantment. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card if its power is 3 or greater, otherwise put 2 counters on it. So you have, you're pairing that with like Barkhide Troll, Yorvo to draw cards, but you're also getting counters on your elves. So you can have like, if you just play an elf with this and a scales in play, it's a 4/4. Like that's, you just start beating people with elves too. So I think this one is like kind of the best of both worlds, where you get to play the scales aspect, but also have a really good mono green deck.
Yeah, I'm into this. This is cool. This looks like it could create a lot of power. I mean, I really liked when Vivian Arcbow Ranger was in mono green walkers as kind of the original version of the mono green deck in Pioneer. Yeah, seems strong. Seems great.
Yeah, it's got a lot of angles, right? You've got, like you said, Nykthos, Hardened Scales. Also, you can tutor up giant things that you want to cast, kind of like Karn with Vivian Arcbow Ranger, which is another ability about that card for sure.
I mean, even if you're not using her to tutor things up, like her plus puts 2/1/1 counters on things. They get trample. So if you have a scales out, that creates 4 power
right
on the board, and then giving your already beefy creatures trample. Not a lot's really going to be able to block that kind of stuff. So looks pretty strong.
Yeah, I really like how all the pieces work together. You have like the green pip cards that also have counters, like Voracious Hydra and the Yorvos, and it's just like a really, when I look at this deck list, it just looks like a very solid, well-rounded shell. So
yeah, very simple construction, sort of in some ways. Like all the cards just make sense, like you said, together.
Mm-hmm.
So excitement level on this one to get in there and test it.
This one probably like an 8 or a 9. I'm really, really hype on this one.
Wow.
Yeah, are you going to stream this tomorrow? Or which one are you streaming tomorrow, by the way? What's first thing?
Whatever we get the cards for, because it's going to be
that's a good point, yes.
For the first little bit. So I'm going to open like probably 200 or 300 chests and see what we can get, and we're going to see if we can get cards from other people too. So
200 or 300 chests.
Well, I have one.
Are the chests?
I have 150 right now, but what I do is I just wheel them. So basically, I open the chests, sell the cards, and then use those to buy more chests. So
totally.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say, like, so I mean, are the chests locked when you earn them, or are they dynamic contents?
Yeah, they're when you open them. Yeah,
that's wild. Well, good luck. I will be watching the stream tomorrow for sure.
All right, we have one last deck to look at from Devon's list of things that he's interested in, and these are 2 cards that Devon, I don't know if you remember, we talked about these on the very initial mom spoilers that we saw.
I do remember.
Right after the Pro Tour. Sorin and Ghalta and Mavrin, the biggest vampires you've ever seen.
Yeah, so this is taking a lot of inspiration. Like, if you look at this deck list, minus the Ghalta and Mavrins, you probably would have seen this exact deck list, whenever Vampires was popular, like a year and a half or 2 years ago. But yeah, the rundown, it's basically just a bunch of vampires: Knight of the Ebon Legion, Dusk Legion Zealot, Gifted Aetherborn, Champion of Dusk, which was the old card that people used to just, put into playoff Sorin to draw a bunch of cards. But the gimmick here, or the joke, is Sorin -2, you can put a vampire card from your hand onto the battlefield, and Ghalta and Mavrin, stats-wise, is the largest vampire that we currently have in the format. So that's the idea.
I think in any format, for what it's worth.
Yeah, in any format, yeah. So that's the idea. But like, the nice thing about this deck, and you'll notice a trend in these decks, it's like, yes, there is a gimmick, but a lot of them can just play a normal game without the gimmick, right? Like you saw, the boats deck with the Fling, just like a normal boats deck. Gruul Dragons, same thing. And this is no different. You have the Sorin Ghalta and Maven combo, but you just have like a very competent deck that is, Fatal Push Thoughtseize, a good curve of creatures, even when you don't do the thing. And I think that's maybe a very good lesson to take about Pioneer. It's like your deck needs to be able to execute its game plan, but also have a plan for when the game plan isn't executed. I think that's where you find the most successful Pioneer decks.
Mm-hmm. So in a way, we're kind of theorizing that Vampires is just good enough to try at least, but it's really helped by having an over-the-top move that can make people kind of really respect it a little bit more and have that kind of burst potential. Is that kind of what the thinking is with this list?
Yeah, so the logic and the idea is Vampires is very, very good at grinding. Like, if you can imagine a deck that has Champion of Dusk and Castle Locthwain and Hive of the Eye Tyrant and Dust Legion Zealot and Sorin Imperious Bloodlord, like, this deck will outgrind anything. The issue with Vampires is it never had a clock. Like, you just, without having like Knight of the Ebon Legion into Gifted Aetherborn into, random 3-drop, you couldn't really pressure anybody. But now you could just put 12 power into play on turn 3, and that is pretty good at pressuring your Lotus Field opponent or something like that. So the idea is that you can already hang with all of the mid-range decks, but now you have this way to actually beat the combo decks that you didn't have access to before.
There you go.
Is it weird I want Ghalta to do more? Like, I feel like it's fine. Like, you know what I mean? Like if you were casting this fairly, 7 mana, you have to have other stuff on the board, basically. You know what I mean? Like, but it is a 12/12 trampler, so maybe that just gets the job done by itself.
That you get to cast on turn 3 in this deck.
That's probably okay. Doesn't have ward.
Shane's
it's gonna get Dreadboard.
Yeah, but if it gets Dreadboard, then you get to keep Sorin, and then you get to do stuff with Sorin.
That seems okay. You're probably right.
I'm not sure that, this is one of those things where I'm like, we'll see, right? Like, Vampires was a very close deck, and like having a wild move like this out of it could really push it a lot. But interesting.
Yeah, I remember when Vampires was popular, at least as far as I can recall, it was like a pretty good like tier 1.5 deck. It was very, very good in the format.
Yeah, it was always like Champion of Dusk does not seem to do anything, and then you have someone plays it against you, and you're like, no, it kind of does. No. I kind of do hate it. Yeah. I kind of do hate this dumb 4/4.
No, these decks seem sweet. Thanks for sharing them all with us, by the way.
Last rating.
The last rating.
Shane, you took the bit all the way through to the end. We talked you came up with the rating idea and then talked over it every single time.
You're right.
Well, let's hear it. Where does this one go for you?
12.
Probably no. Probably like a 6.5 or a 7. Probably close.
This one's lower on your list.
Yeah, I'm just like Shane said. It is unfortunate that Ghalta doesn't really have any kind of protection. So that's kind of my issue. Is like you said, even they Dreadbore your Ghalta, you still have a Sorin. But if you have no other Vampires, then you might not be doing a lot with Sorin anyway. So this one's risky and potentially could be good. I think more so like, I'm interested to see like how the attack trigger, like if it matters. Like, okay, question is like, if I attack with Ghalta and then they kill it, do I get enough out of the trigger to close the gap? That's kind of the thing that I'm interested in testing. But
right,
it looks sweet.
It certainly is sweet. I'm looking at this. I'm looking at the abilities again to make sure I remember what all it does.
It's only 250, by the way.
Yeah.
So, hey, like I said, Devon, thanks for sharing all these brews with us and coming onto the pod again. We always glad to hear some Pioneer brews. We are a brewing podcast, so this is what people tune in for. No, this is why we have people like you on, is to tell us what you're thinking about the format. Excited to watch you stream some of these lists. What are you thinking about the changes to Pioneer coming up? Because our buddies over at Faithless Brewing, they've been doing a lot of work thinking about Pioneer brews as well. I think they're pretty hyped for a lot of the combo enablers and cards like what's that, the Chrome Host Siege Shark and things like that. Like, what do you think is going to have? Do you think that the format's going to shift just because of the variety of options we have here?
It's tough. At the end of the day, as sweet as these decks are, and you kind of get the same thing in Modern, where the established decks are the established decks for a reason. And it's really, really hard for decks to be able to crack into that. They really have to be, multi-dimensional. They have to have a very good, proactive game plan. So I don't know if anything is 100% going to crack through. But it's all a part of the brewing process. You gotta test some stuff to see what sticks and throw a bunch of darts at the dartboard. Maybe you get a bullseye once in a while.
Heck yeah, we'll be watching for those bullseyes.
We'll be hoping that those bullseyes are made of dragons.
Yes,
for what it's worth,
and and blow up the battle on the side of the dartboard. This metaphor is falling apart
it's a
quickly.
Great metaphor, Shane. Use
yes,
it.
This is why I'm a podcast. This is why I host podcast. Devon, where can people find you on Twitch and on Twitter?
Twitch.tv/d00mwake, d00mwake. The same as for Twitter and YouTube as well.
Awesome. Thanks again for joining us, Devon, unofficial regular guest, fourth podcast host. Glad to have you on again. But that wraps up this week's show. If you haven't, subscribe to the pod. You can get the latest episodes as soon as they come out. And if you use Apple Podcasts, feel free to leave us a rating or a review over there. If you want to reach out to us, you can tweet us at The Dive Down or email thedivedown@gmail.com. If you want to support us, you can go to the Patreon, patreon.com/thedivedown, or the store at thedivedown.com/store. Mana traders, you can use our code TheDiveDown2023, all one word, gets you 10% off your first 2 months of renting Magic Online cards there. You can also, of course, get some shaving soaps, body soaps, fragrances, more over at Barrister and Mann using code TheDiveDown2023 as well. 15% off your first order there. Nerd Range Gaming, our friends, give you 8% off your order with code DIVE8. Thanks to the bands Nowhere and Spacebud for letting us use their music. And until next week, get out there and cast a bunch of dragons!